And a lot of times when people can't make it live, they'll tune in later.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're good. We're live.
Excellent. Let's start with introductions. Len, let's have you go first.
Hello. You mean introduce myself?
Introduce yourself and
Okay.
what you bring to what you bring to videography, your recent excursions.
Okay. Well, I've been a student of photography since I was a teenager in high school, and just recently got more into video and audio recording for the purpose of a grant for 2020, shifting from a live performance kind of setting to a more virtual setting and make it accessible to everyone remotely. So it's been a big learning curve, learning EQ, mastering all the video and audio and all that stuff. So it's kind of old with the camera, but it's kind of new with the video and audio. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm learning more every day, that's for sure.
That's terrific. Thank you. Tracy, you're our next panelist. Let's have you introduce yourself, please.
I'm Tracy Duflo. I am the Director of Production and Executive Producer at WPBS-TV. I've been here for 32 years, and I've worked on numerous documentaries, videos, commercials, promos, you name it, I've pretty much worked on them.
That's excellent. And Ryan, how about you, please?
So hi, my name is Ryan. I was the general manager of my college TV station, WNYF television, and I've just been making videos my whole life. Been encapsulated by like the process of television for as long as I can remember. And I'm always writing, editing, and learning new things every day.
Terrific. And then our own Jenna Clute is also joining the panel today.
Hello, everyone. Most of you know me. I'm the marketing coordinator here at SLC Arts. And along with that, I edit our videos. I've been doing that for my own personal social media and YouTube channel for the last decade. So I'll just bring I'm not an expert, but I'll bring as much expertise as I can.
I think we have a really great mix on the panel. We've got people, I mean, Tracy's been doing this for 32 years. Len is just learning, but immersed himself comes from that arts background, and is, all four of you have a great perspective. To Len, I apologize. I'm just getting over a cold. And if anybody can't hear me, just let me know, raise your hand. So we're gonna start off with like a loose format. First, we're gonna talk about pre-production, and then we're gonna move into production, editing, and then post-production. And I'm really just I gave a general outline, but we're really gonna let this organically happen, this discussion. So for the panelists, what do you need to know before you start production in the ways of your vision, knowing your physical and your material needs, and your marketing needs, equipment, planning your production, writing your script? What is your process with pre-production?
Well, first of all, you have to know what you want the end product to do and where the end product is going to be seen and who it's going to be seen by, who you want it to be seen by.
I feel like I have to know who's doing what, especially in a case where I would know like the cast and crew, stuff like that, because everybody has a different way of doing things. So if I know, let's say, who's going to be the director or the writer or editor, something like that, it kind of like changes my outlook on things in a good way usually.
I think for me, a part of that is also just like knowing what your objective is and then planning accordingly what kind of equipment you're going to need. Because for some different types of videos, you might require different lenses or different audio microphones and all that kind of stuff. And also where you're going to record. So if it's outside, you might need a different lens to dim the lighting, or if you're indoors and it's dark, you might need a lighting equipment for that. So I feel like that's something that would be in the early stages of production.
For me as an artist, mostly I guess I begin with the feeling that I want to convey to people. You know, what in my heart, and what is that inspirational muse kind of whisper, and how can I be as true to that as possible, and then from that vision and that feeling, try to figure out the other steps of what I need to convey that, warm light, soft light, cold colors, whatever it might be. And then I do play with different scripting, some kind of loose, and then some more specific, I guess. So for me, it's a lot about what I want to get across to the people and how I want to make them feel, inspire them.
Great, terrific. Do you find that when you're in pre-production, does your script dictate your needs, or do your needs dictate your script? I mean, there should be a balance there, but what generally happens when you're in that process?
Your needs would probably dictate the script more than the script dictate your needs, because you got to figure out what you want in your video and what you want your video to say, what important points you need to get. Sometimes it's easier to start with an outline of the points that you want to make, and then put the meat on the bones from there. And then you figure out where you need to shoot, what you need to shoot. A lot of times your information will come from interviewees. And sometimes that's part of the pre-production process, and sometimes that's part of the production process. And you actually do the interview.
Right. Okay. Let's move into production. What are the elements that you need to capture quality video and sound? We're not just talking, we say videography, but we're incorporating sound with that as well. So between camera settings and staging and framing and audio, what are the elements that go into that? What are the building blocks, step by step?
Well, you need to use as good a camera as you can, as high quality a camera as you can.
Definitely one thing I've realized, more important than anything, I feel like in the last 4 years of school though, is lighting. It's like you could have the best camera, but it just doesn't look good if the lighting's not good. And that's definitely something that I underestimated. It was just like, you can just use whatever lighting is like here. No, you need so much external lighting, especially if you want things to look good at all.
Yes, and especially if you're shooting interviews, you really want to use some lighting when you're doing that to kick up the person's face a little bit. Some B-roll stuff you can get away without lighting, some you need lighting, but with an interview, you almost always need lighting.
When an artist or a small arts organization or co-op is starting out and they want to have a good presence, but they don't really necessarily have the budget. Tracy, you mentioned the best light, the best camera you can afford, and Ryan, you're talking about lighting. What things would you tell them? What are essential to start with?
You mean as far as a brand of camera?
As far as things, not necessarily a brand as much as important things to look at when you're buying this equipment.
Well, DJI has a nice little camera. It's called a DJI Pocket camera. I think there's another word in there, Pocket 2. And it's a nice HD camera. It's about maybe $450 with some of the accessories, and it captures video very, very well. So if you had a low budget, you could do that. And it's got a gimbal on it, so your video can be pretty steady. But that's also important. It says hold the camera steady if you're doing handheld, unless you're going for the unsteady look.
Right.
You really want to hold your camera as steady as you possibly can. And a gimbal definitely helps there. But cameras aren't that expensive anymore, especially if you're not looking for broadcast quality. There's some really good, inexpensive cameras out there, like the DJI Pocket Mini.
Len and Jenna, I'd be interested to know, with where you are and coming from the arts perspective, do you use a video camera, or do you use your cell phone?
Go ahead.
You can go first, don't worry.
No, wait, me know you. I use DSLR cameras, a couple of Canon cameras, just for compatibility's sake with the lenses, and that's what I'm familiar using, from doing portraiture and weddings photography and all that stuff. And often, I do put the settings on a manual setting, sometimes an auto white balance depending, but usually I try to keep everything consistent across the board from camera to camera. And, you know, I vary the focal length and the framing depending on, you know, the intensity of the moment, and trying to vary the, you know, the focus of the people at the time. You know, if it's a landscape, maybe I want a greater depth of field versus like an interview, you know, nice soft background to, you know, bring the people forward in a nice way.
Going off of what Len said, I actually use this as Arts Council. We use the same camera, the Canon, and that's my personal camera I have as well at home. And I find, depending on the project I'm doing, for bigger things, or if like Tracy was saying about stability, if I'm trying to have more stability, I'll use my Canon more often, as it has the tripod accessible added addition to that. But I use my iPhone a lot, honestly. And I think when it comes down to video production, it's not necessarily about entirely the quality or the amount of equipment you have, but how well you can use it and how knowledgeable you are on what the equipment is and what it can do, and then using it to the best of your ability to get done whatever it is you're doing. Because there's a lot of settings on any kind of equipment, and just looking into that and researching what it is you're purchasing, what it is that you have already, and then making the most of it. You can still put pretty decent stuff out there, even if it's not, you know, absolute professional to be aired on television type quality, but there's still decent things you can do with an iPhone, or like a ring light even.
Okay, thank you. What about audio? We've talked a lot about cameras and focusing and lighting. What about audio when you're recording something?
Well, if it's an interview, we usually use lavalier mics and that seems to be a really good quality, and the sound sounds really good from a lavalier mic. If you're trying to capture some action, you might want to use a shotgun mic, or just the mic that comes on the camera.
Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between those?
The shotgun mic is on the camera. If you've got somebody far away, you're not going to hear that well. If somebody's talking a bit of a distance away, that's not going to come across the microphone very well. Whereas a lavalier microphone is on the person that you're talking to, so the audio is right there with the person, but your camera is probably a distance away.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, my
Shotgun
first
mic
one.
is a long piece, and a lavalier is a little tiny thing.
I had a Rode mic for my DSLR, which is basically like a little mic that goes on top of the camera and hooks up to it. I've noticed that works good in like interview settings or indoor settings, because it's just like a basic mic that you hook to your camera and it just gets your subject the audio. However, it doesn't really work outside because there's almost always like wind. And if you're trying to get the audio from somebody from a distance, it doesn't really work. Then you would incorporate like lavalier mics, because it's right up to them, and then it captures the audio really crisp.
I've also used large diaphragm microphones for capturing music, you know, that I do mix, you know, with that Rode mic, that shotgun mic, and stuff like that, to add another layer, you know, to get a nice acoustic sound for an instrument, sometimes a condenser, or for a vocal, a larger diaphragm microphone works well.
Okay. Boy, we're moving right along here. Let's talk a little bit about the editing process. Go ahead.
Really talk too much about the framing. As Jenna said, it's very important to frame your shot well and pay attention to what's in the background. I'm famous for moving furniture and getting rid of trash cans and clutter on desks and things like that. When you're framing your shot, you want to make sure that the clutter is not there, the garbage can's not there, the dirt piles aren't there, whatever, unless of course you're talking about dirt piles. But yeah, you need to really watch what your framing is. You want to watch for your headroom, you want to watch for your looking room. There are different styles. Sometimes you want more headroom because that's the style you want to use. But as a whole, you don't want too much headroom, and you do want some looking room, and you want the frame nice.
Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's like one thing you can't fix in editing. If you didn't have your like frame set up good, then there's nothing really you can do about that. So it's really crucial that you know what you want your composition to be before you shoot it, because there's a lot of stuff you can fix in post-production, but that's not one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And using, lots of leading lines and, different angles to add more depth to the scene, I find also is critical to directing people's focal points and their awareness of the frame, and, kind of layering up different bits of information, to tell more of that story, or, less of the story, depending on the shot. Is also a way that I work and try to, utilize all the things in the frame to accentuate what it is that I want to say.
That's great. Jenna, did you have anything to add to that? You can. No.
When it comes to like editing itself, I honestly probably prefer that the most of the process, because that's where my creativity really can come out. I find is a lot of what I do with editing is, especially if it's like an interview, or if I'm doing a segment for SLC Arts or something where we're going different places and we're kind of like almost making a commercial or something of the sort. I find a lot of like my favorite tool to use is recording candid moments and then overlaying audio. Because oftentimes I see in a lot of videos where it's just people talking at the camera and talking to the audience, but it really keeps the interest there with a lot of like candid moments of either, if you're doing an interview, maybe something the person is talking about and live footage from that event or from that experience, or if it's an artist, or if it's someone who does something of that sort, maybe some of their artwork or their studio, just a quick like panel over that. I find that kind of stuff and adding that to your video once you're in the editing process is something that really can be a good addition, along with adding background tracks to it, that as well, which you have to be careful with because there's a lot of copyright around that. So you're just making sure that you have the rights to do that in the first place is a whole other thing. But I feel like that as well kind of just, it sets the mood, because music often has a aspect to it that draws people in or can like set the mood of whatever it is they're watching.
When I'm doing a music video, the music kind of becomes like the base, and then I usually edit the video according to that soundtrack of music. So that becomes like the underlying foundation for the visual imagery.
So the music is primary, and then the video fills in the music being the base.
Yeah, and kind of, adding to the story, reflecting the lyrics and the tone of the music and the feeling of the music.
Okay. So how can we kind of did jump down to editing. How can it improve and enhance your film or your story?
Well, it puts the footage in the order that you want it to be seen, for one. And then it also eliminates the footage you don't want to be seen, or any audio you don't want to be seen. And if you add graphics and what we call B-roll footage, which is footage that you'd put over an interview or a narration, it can also help demonstrate some of the points you're trying to make in the video.
Ryan, did you want to add anything to that?
Editing is personally my favorite part of like production for a video or something like that, because you can have so much creative like leeway and stuff that you want to do. My favorite editing program that I use is Adobe Premiere. I think it goes for somewhere between 10 to 20 bucks a month or something like that. But for me, it's worth it, and especially when you have like a desktop to use it on. because
If you're in a commercial setting, it's much more than 10 or $20 a month. It's more like 35. If you're in a-
gotcha, yeah. When I had it in school, I obviously was paying it through my tuition, and then I'm gonna have to get it again. Because I know that's the only one I could say that I know pretty thoroughly. But when you make stuff like I were to make, where it's a lot of really heavily edited stuff like green screening, just like short skits and stuff like that, I think it's really smooth. So that's definitely one I would recommend. The other ones is there's like Final Cut if you have Apple products. Even as basic as like iMovie if you're not really trying to do anything too spectacular. So, but yeah, it's all based on what you want your outcome to be for what type of editing program you're going to use.
Now, I'm using Adobe Audition as well as Adobe Premiere in conjunction, and they're very compatible. Obviously, they're kind of made for each other, but that makes it really easy to record music in the home studio and mix that with the video, etc.
What about adding additional media to what you already have recorded, video and audio wise? I think Jenna kind of touched on that too, adding other things in. Any input? No?
I mean, you definitely want to make sure you have rights to use stuff.
That's important.
We use a lot of stuff off in Blatto or Digital Juice or Shutterstock or things like that when we need external pictures or footage that we can't get ourselves.
And are those subscription and are those subscriptions or are those
You
free?
can, no, well, in Blatto and Digital Juice, we both have subscriptions for, but I think you can also buy as needed as well. I don't think you have to have a subscription.
Great.
And Shutterstock and all those usually are buy as you go.
Or music, yeah. For like music and stuff. Honestly, YouTube Audio Library has a lot. I did not have to, again, underestimated it, but like a lot of their stuff lets you use their stuff, but sometimes depends on like the licensing. You just have to like give credit sometimes. But a lot of stuff is free to use, especially, I don't know too much about like a commercial setting or whatever, but definitely free to like post. And it's a lot of good creative stuff that is beyond what you would just look up for like royalty-free music. It's a lot of it sounds really professional.
Okay. Post-production. After your production is complete, what's important to know as far as having an appeal to an audience, platforms for your work, where you're going to, I guess you'd really need to know this obviously in advance, but taking what you've created and getting it out to people. Can you speak a little bit about that element?
Well, you need to know what format you have to export it as, and that depends on where you're going to be airing or putting the video. Obviously for broadcast, it's a certain file format. For YouTube and for Facebook, it's a different file format, different settings. So you just need to know what you're going to do with the video and export it out appropriately so that you have the quickest download times for people. And if it's for broadcast, you have to have it closed captioned. I think you actually do sometimes for YouTube and Facebook as well. Our stuff's always closed captioned, so I don't know if there's a particular threshold of not having something closed captioned, but.
A lot of websites offer auto captions now, but of course in that there's always the possibility that they're going to detect the language entirely wrong and create some funky phrase. But I agree that I think closed captioning really does help. It helps, especially in modern media. We're finding it to be, those are the videos that are more watched, they're more accessible for all. And I think that's something definitely to consider, whether or not the website or wherever you're going to put it up requires it.
Great. Anything else to add? What about tracking analytics to see, how your piece is being received by your audience? Are there any good analytics trackers that you can recommend?
Well, it's not really part of what I do, but I know that Facebook, you can find out, how many likes and how many shares and how many watches, and I guess the same with YouTube as well.
Yep, same with YouTube. That's the only thing I use.
Okay, great. So, okay, this is a record fast roundtable discussion. My goodness. If there's, I'd like to just kind of follow up and then just have each of you talk about, best practices, takeaways from this that are really important for somebody that is just thinking about getting into this.
Don't stop. Like, if you have an idea, I feel like the one thing that differentiated people that I've worked with that continued on what they were doing and didn't continue on what we were doing is actually like following through with your ideas. So many times people will have an idea to do something or create something and it just won't happen. And it's not always necessarily their fault, but you can always take that extra step to make sure that these things happen. I know me personally, if I want to create something, I will seek out my crew or whatever, and I will try to get my idea to fruition. Whether I'm satisfied with it or not, we still went through it. And I feel like that is always just a good stepping stone to what you're going to create next. Whether you're, like I said, happy with it or not. So to anybody trying to get into this, just go for it. You have to follow through with your ideas.
Thank you.
In our production process, I would encourage everybody at every stage, whether you are scripting, pre-production, editing, to just keep asking yourself, if I knew nothing about this subject, would I understand it after reading this script, after watching this video? And am I making it interesting, or am I boring everybody to pieces? Getting feedback is important. Show it to some people, and let them tell you, oh God, that thing was boring, or this, I really like this part, I really didn't like that part, I didn't understand this. So yeah, just get feedback.
Great. Len, Jenna, any parting words?
I guess, for me, it's like, stay true to your heart and your inspiration. And, how, like with any artistic process, we have something initially in mind, and, the outcome kind of evolves and it becomes, the essence of that, but also it's kind of its own creature. It's kind of alive in a way. And so, finding ways to nourish that vision, like I love what Ryan said about, following through and don't ever give up, and, really stepping back and not taking anything personal. Is it boring? Is it interesting? Like, that's so critical, I think, as an artist is, we invest our whole heart and soul into it, but also we have to, put it on the wall and critique it. And, getting as much feedback from as many different people as possible is essential. And so I guess, mostly, not obsessing too much to the point of perfectionism, because that can like stall the process, but allowing that process to unfold, and enjoying that process. I think those are some key things that I'd like to share with folks about that.
Yeah, you can tweak and tweak and tweak, but there's got to be a point where you have to say, okay, I've got to move on. This is how it is, and this is good enough, and I've got to move on.
Absolutely.
Knowing when it's finished, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And criticism is never a bad thing. You have to know that.
That's good. Jenna, any parting words? Any final thoughts?
Yeah. As someone who doesn't have any kind of formal videography training, and most of it's been self-taught, I think that, like the others have said, don't give up. You can teach yourself, and you can make the most out of whatever it is that you have to offer, in, whether it be the equipment you have or the ideas you have. And I think sometimes even in the process of putting things out there, Yes, of course, appeal and like how receptive it was matters to an extent, but if it's something that you're just starting off with, even just putting it out there in the first place is awesome, and is something that's gradually going to like accumulate the confidence and the skills and give you practice in doing and continuing with that further. I've been doing my own video editing since I was 11. And of course, if I look at the things I've done when I was 11, they're quite awful. But I think in doing that, some of the stuff I learned, even as a young person, I still use now, because that's just something I never stopped, and I continue to do, and adapt with different platforms as they came out, and add new equipment as they've come out as well. And I feel like everything is just like it's like an additional process. You're never losing anything. You're just gaining. You're just gaining as you put stuff out and experience more. So yeah, just don't, like what everyone else said, don't give up.
Great. At this time, I'd like to ask if anyone has any questions for the panel, they can speak up and feel free to ask away. And if not, I guess we're done for today.
I
got one.
have one question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I've
After
got
you,
a question. I got a question for Tracy. How did the things go with the recording at the Opera House?
Very well, very well.
Good.
We haven't edited that yet, but it's on our agenda. We'll
Okay.
hear it in late September or early October.
Okay, great.
I guess my question would be, as an artist, I'm always reflecting, what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? And one of my definite weaknesses is marketing and getting the word out to more people and reaching more people. I have a YouTube channel and, only about 400 subscribers, and I'm trying to figure out like, how can I connect with a greater audience? What steps could I take, or what do you guys suggest to do that?
I personally, this is a lot of people underestimate this, because a lot of people associate it with children, being a children's app, but I've found so much success on TikTok. I found TikTok really just like took all of the things I've been doing for the last 10 years of my life and finally gave me the platform where I could reach people. And they just do a really good job on the app of circulating the things that you post. And it's the same type of thing when you're making videos on there, to like keep all of the things that we've said in mind. It's just on a phone and to a smaller capacity. But I've found that's the largest audience I've ever met. I have almost 30,000 followers on TikTok right now, which is insane to me. I've never had that broad of an audience before. Yeah.
This sounds like a question for a future roundtable too. Marketing in and of itself is a really big topic. Knowing your audience, working with your local arts organizations, working with SLC Arts, working with Thousand Islands Arts Council and North Country Arts Council, working with other like-minded people to spread the word. Hey, will you share this on your social media? This is, I'm a member of your organization, give me some promotion, that kind of thing. That's kind of where we start. And this roundtable was started because it came out of an effort to draw the North Country arts community together as a whole, not just have it so divided. And Watertown's doing this, Clayton's doing this, Potsdam is doing this, but we want to really try to be inclusive of the North Country arts community as a whole. So this is a good platform for something like that. Just a thought. So. Does anyone have any other questions? All right. Well, we'll be meeting again next month. I don't even remember what our topic is. I'm very sorry. Jenna, do you have that or no? We'll be posting it. We'll be emailing you. I'm really embarrassed right now. But I want to thank Tracy and Ryan, Len and Jenna for their expertise today. And thank you for joining our call.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.